Mr Chairman, I was just going to give a brief answer to the issues raised by Ms Claire Curran, which she's raised in both parts to date about financial literacy. And I can advise that the Minister of Commerce has asked officials to develop a financial literacy work stream. The work is in the early stages of development. It's worth noting that the Government has recently transferred responsibility for the Retirement Commissioner to Vote Commerce, and this recognises the important linkages between the financial literacy functions of the Commissioner's functions and financial markets regulation, and thus should promote increased investor confidence. Thank you.
I call Honourable Steve Chadwick.
Yes, well, I'm going to take a call on part two here, and I'm finding the debate as we get into the nitty-gritty, really, part two about licences and registration and accreditation, and then the role of the Financial Markets Authority is remarkably similar to initiatives that Labor began in government about professionalisation, actually of the medical profession. Then I think we did it with I can remember with police, similar models came into being, and I know that the Honourable Leanne Dalziel became concerned actually when he began financial market concerns for investors, that perhaps the professionalism needed to be raised, that bar needed to be raised in relation to auditors. And this is a good bill, and we're supporting this bill because it is really important for investors and regulators and others that participate in the financial market to know that there is confidence in the information that they're dealing with. I can see that in New Zealand there were indicators at the time of the first failings, like the Blue Chip and others that started this ball rolling, that some of the finance companies lacked the competence that was necessary to carry out the audits or didn't have a sufficient degree of independence. So part two, Mr Speaker, gives that degree of specificity that you need to make sure that there's ongoing competence requirements. I think that's a very good component of part two. Also, there's a right of appeal, which I think is a fair aspect for those that may fail through the Financial Market Authority to be issued a licence, and that prescribing of licensing and registration is incredibly important. My colleague talked about the minimum standard, but I could find the minimum standard in Clause 25 actually. But one of the issues that I know the Honourable Leanne Dalziel would like to have said in relation to the responsibility of the Financial Markets Authority and the new board that's just been established was a bit of a lost opportunity, actually, that the Minister of Commerce didn't carry over some of the expertise from that initial establishment board. They worked really hard and developed great expertise about how the Financial Markets Authority would work in relation to part two of this bill, and she notes that only one member of the establishment board has been appointed to the Financial Markets Authority board, and another has been appointed as an associate member. I think there's a bit of a failing in that process. Some of them may have decided they didn't want to go onto the board, but there is so much expertise in a reform process when the development of professionalism for auditors was accepted that had to happen. I think that strategic thinking of that initial establishment board is now not carried through. That's not a criticism. I think it's a pity. It's an observation that they're now not on the board. But I do think part two, with all that it specifies, does show us that old model of self-regulation of the industry, of accountants as auditors was now outdated, and we had to move to this bill, and I think it's great that the Minister's picked it up. It was tabled in September, and here we are in May at the committee stage. That was very necessary, very required for investment confidence in the financial market. So those are the only remarks that I want to make about subpart 2, but they do follow quite a prescribed process that I've seen with other professional regulation, and so we're learning from this, and we'll be looking at others. I think we did it with real estate agents and others. We looked at a similar authority, so this is good. There'll be other professions that we may be looking at, and we'll learn for how this works when it's applied in law as we go through this bill becoming enacted. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I call Stuart Nash.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.